My name is Kwaku Afriyie. I was born in Sergipe also some 62.5 years ago. I schooled in the local primary and part of the middle school from 1960 to 66 to 68 when I sat for the common entrance and passed excuse me, and was admitted at the St. Augustine's College in Cape Coast. In St. Augustine's, I spent 7 years. First O-level, I had distinction, I did science, and then the A-level. Subsequently, I was admitted at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital, where I had my MBCAB. I was posted to, I did a house job, 6 months, part of it, in Kolebu, and posted to Fiam Kwanta Hospital, and earned an elevation as a medical officer. I was then posted to Bibiani Hospital, where I served some 10 years. But in between the 10 years, I left for the USA. I had a USAID scholarship after some studies in maternal deaths, which was published under the Dr. Gardner. So that earned me a scholarship. I went to Lane University and did public health and majored in maternal and child health, and also did courses in healthcare financing. I went back to Bibiani, where I served for some time, and because certain circumstances.
Chairman, sorry, if the nominee, Doctor, the mic, if you can, so that you are more edible.
Thank you.
I want to hear you. Thank you.
So I had to leave and go into private practice and also concentrate on farming activities, which I had started even before entering medical school. So that's a brief resume about me. President Kufuor appointed me first as Minister, Lands, Forestry and Mines, but I was there for some 8 to 9 months. So I oversaw the setting up of about 30 million nurseries and nursery trees of various species. Following for that, there was a cabinet reshuffle, and my brief was to make sure that health insurance was upstream and then got implemented in this country. So at that time, that was my main focus. So we developed a policy program which was sent to cabinet, was approved by my colleagues. A lot of you recall that I was in the chamber when I defended stridently the health insurance program and bill, which was passed into law, Act 650, I believe. And we ruled the health insurance.
Hasn't the Act been amended?
Yes, it's surely be amended now.
Indicate that you are a fellow College of Physicians and Surgeons, but you only have August 2005. Are you still a fellow?
Yes, I'm a fellow. I'm a foundation fellow of the College of Physicians and Surgeons. So that one, currently you have to write an exam and all that. But me, I pre-qualified. So when my interest is that I was very instrumental in bringing that College of Physicians and Surgeons into being. I was in the chamber or in Parliament when the bill was passed into an act. So I qualified, and a lot of my colleagues and seniors to qualify. So we were a foundation. Proud to say that I'm a foundation fellow. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we will carry out the necessary.
Chairman, the nominee in his preliminary remarks defining who he is stated with pride his contribution to that social intervention program referred to as the National Health Insurance Scheme. Which aspects of it would you want improved for the benefit of Ghanaians today?
Mr. Chairman, I don't want to give a long lecture, but I believe that even the actuarial underpinnings of what we call national health insurance scheme in Ghana has been violated to the extent that I don't think the scheme, if we carry it now, will be viable. It won't be sustainable because the actuarial underpinnings have been violated. Actually, when you are setting up a social health insurance scheme, you have to compromise on things like risk equalization. You have to compromise on things like pre-existing conditions with you people bring in. And when I hear, for example, when I see that people are embarking on mass immunizations, I get scared. So what I want to say is that we have to look at the policy document, we have to look at the law, and then fine-tune it and make sure that we are abreast with what is trending in the contemporary world. Beyond that too, then the implementation. Fortunately, I have been a policymaker. I have defended the bill into an act, and I'll even be a provider. So I can speak from all perspectives. What is happening out there is not what is being intended by the policymakers. So there's a huge gap between what is happening on the floor, especially from the provider's perspective, and even, I dare say, from the managers of the insurance scheme. I believe that, like I've said, I do not intend to give a lecture, but even when I was, I'm very grateful to the previous regime. Even when I was in yours, they find it very courteous to invite me to attend some of their review, review programs, and the Honorable Ilechre will attest to that. I make sure that I even make time to attend at my own expense from Sevioso. So I have a program. Yes.
So if today you had an opportunity for a policy dissection of a decade of implementation of health insurance, will financing of health insurance and probably support for distressed vulnerable like the aged persons qualify to be a candidate for your review exercise by way of policy?
Sure. If you remember, the health insurance started as what I call a confederation of district mutual health schemes. And in that document, there was a heavy emphasis on vulnerable groups and those who have been marginalized. And we defined them in absolute terms. So, yes, sure.
For instance, in that act, which was subsequently amended, aged persons, you know by your practice of medicine in Ghana what retired workers and pensioners go through. I mean, they are the worst off in terms of cardio-related diseases, kidney, liver, the major things which are not covered by the National Health Insurance Act. Will you recommend a policy review in terms of even the age? I hear we are still at 60 years. It could be 65, it could be 70. In terms of indigents who benefit from it, will that receive a policy recommendation from your position?
I will. I notice that people get scared when you say you will. But I'm helped by demography. Those who are within that bracket are a minuscule portion of Ghana's population. I suspect it could be less than 1%. So, but I have to be, I have to look at the figures. So, in terms of the burden on the scheme, it won't be that much, because they will have cardiovascular disease and diseases affecting the kidneys and whatnot, terminal diseases. Even in the best of places, these terminal diseases, the outcomes are not too good, but it's like prolonging life. This thing has always been the bane of health insurance schemes and even social interventions. We need to have a national dialogue on that, and we need to be supported by actuarial studies and whatnot. But when you give anecdotal evidence about these things, I don't think it will happen.
Chairman, given the nominee's profile and the role he played in the new patriotic party politics, in the manifesto is a pledge for free cancer treatment. Do you see that objective being attainable?
Well, there are certain cancer, with regard to oncology, that's another terminology for cancer, we've come a long way. There are certain cancers which can be cured, especially in children. And then there are some cancers who can be managed. Well, when we're bringing on the health insurance, we did not think that it should be cast in stone. Those policies could be reviewed. And what I'm saying, that the operational word is sustainability. Indeed, even the benefit package, we put in a benefit package for, it was a guidelines. And if you go to the real, the roots, we envisage that certain districts could even give benefits package over and above the national recommendation. So, Chairman, what I'm saying is that this whole thing about benefit packages also need to be reviewed, and all these things that you are alluding to could be accommodated. But of course, the bottom line is financial sustainability.
Chairman, will you support the president to achieve free cancer treatment?
Free cancer treatment, yes, within some bands.
Honorable Western Regional Minister Designate, it is my personal thinking that when we look at development of Western region, everything that comes up in mind, so far as at the national level is concerned, we see exploitative assets and projects to take resources from the region. When you take these things out of the region, you see an empty region. Development doesn't go down to the people. So when we're talking about poverty, Western region comes up. What is your plan? Do you share this thinking? And what's your plan for this?
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, the Western region, we have been blessed and we have been cursed. The Western region, we have so much to give to this country. Currently, if you take the income of this country, we contribute so much. If you take cocoa, we are producing some 60%, sometimes even 65% of Ghana's cocoa. Almost all the forest estates in this country are left in the Western region. We produce manganese, the only portions of this country who produce manganese. The only bauxite mines being exploited in this country is at Awaso. I'm mindful of the fact that there's bauxite in Inahimi and also around Chebi in the Tiwa forest. We also have virtually 100% of Ghana's rubber estates. And there I say about 40% or so or more of the oil palm estates in this country. And we have overtaken Ashanti region as the leading gold producer in Ghana now. We have huge reserves of every mineral, and yes, they are exploiting it. At the national level, I've got a lot of things to say about that because some of the laws will have to be looked at. But in spite of that, we suffer some of the worst burdens of deprivation in this country. If you take the road sector, our roads are the worst in this country. Remember that unfortunately, we have the heaviest rainfall in this country. And that has always been used, government by government, as an excuse not to give us some of the best good roads that everybody wants in this country. That notwithstanding, that's only the road sector. Because of the mining sector too, as a doctor, I noticed that even when we had at the peak of HIV/AIDS cases in this country, the worst some of the worst incidents were in the mining. The prevalence rates in the mining areas was very, very high. And then again, the environmental degradation, that it would take me 24 hours to give you a whole lecture on environmental degradation, water pollution, and so on and so forth. So I'm making a plea, we in government, of course. So I intend to influence policy so that all these things, restitution can be done, and it can be done. It's not because we want to be jingoistic, that because we owe those things. But we have so much to give. If government do not invest in the Western region, Ghana will forever remain poor. Because almost all the mineral content in this country are sequestered in that very region. In fact, the forest estates are sitting on some of the pristine mining, the minerals in this country, and that kind of conflict between mining the forest reserve and then the mining sector. And also, I believe, don't get me wrong, I believe in mining too, because it will unleash money for this country to be developed. But that is policy issue. We should have a national dialogue on it, and we should see where it will take us to. But honing in on the question that has been asked, we want our Western region to be developed so that we can give so much to this country. And the turnaround time is very short indeed. If I may go to the area where I know best, cocoa, Ghana is giving about 1.6 million hectares, same land size as Cote d'Ivoire. The workforce is about 4 million. Cote d'Ivoire 4 million, Ghana 4 million, and yet Cote d'Ivoire last 2 years produced 1,746,000 metric tons, and we did less than 750,000, about 2.5 times. So any injection, if we push the regulators, if we give in all the farming inputs that come in, we can get good investment there, and the turnaround time in my mind's eye is only about 3 years, and even cocoa sector alone, we can almost double our income, because the cocoa sector, like I keep on saying, 65% are from the Western region.
Thank you, Chairman. I would want to go to the people when it comes to education level, competence, skill development, and then make an observation that as I lived my corporate life, moved to offices, and discovered that it is only the Western region when you come. The offices are flooded with different languages. You go to others, it reflects languages of the indigenous offices. Now, my question relates to whether mines and oil and gas area, you would pursue local content policy, whether that through moral switch or advocacy, so that a lot of the jobs descend to the people.
Well, as a minister, you know that my business is to coordinate and make sure that the policies that are given to me by the various sectors are implemented. If I have any issue, since I do not own the policies, I will have to make input at the formulation level, anticipate problems, and give to my colleagues that, hey, this is what I anticipate. But once policies have been streamlined and I believe that it's okay, I will have to make sure that they are implemented by the various districts. And as a regional minister, from my bearing, I'm sure it will be fair for me to say that you surmise that I will not be a static minister. I would love to go to the places where the action is and make sure that policies are implemented. So yes, local content that we're talking about, unemployment is one of the biggest problems that we face, particularly the youth. And in some of these industries, we have to make sure that the local content policy is carried out. But of course, there are certain conditions precedent. If you want local content, then you have to treat your people. So training of people in various industries that are springing up, we have to make sure that the various agencies that are in charge. So I will have to do advocacy, go to schools, and with, of course, people who are competent in those areas, and then paint a picture up to the young people, the opportunities that they have, so that when you are pushing them to go into that kind of local content areas, nobody can stand in your way and tell you that your person is not qualified and so forth. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Issue of
local content in terms of employment. You see, part of the problem, somebody told me that is because we are so rich in Western region, people don't want to go to school. And therefore, even if you want to implement the content of local content law, you may not find many to fill the places. What will you do to improve this situation?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I noticed that he called me a friend. Of course, we are friends in the former Minister of Health, and we belong essentially to the same profession. Local content, I believe, Mr. Chairman, I answered it because the previous questioner, he alluded to the fact that what will I do to make sure that this local content policy is carried out. And I said that we have to start by training our young people, and I'll be doing advocacy. I'll be sending people with the requisite excuse me, Mr. Chairman, the requisite qualifications so that they will play role models. I can imagine myself going to, let's say, Service Sanyra or Wasa Fojo Krum and tell that this person came from here. If you also studied hard, you also become like him. Because actually, our place, we need role models. Yes, it's true. People don't face hardships like elsewhere in this country. I know hardship is relative. Our place has hardship. But even if you are very, very angry, I dare say that, excuse me, if we went to the bush, the secondary forest, we could even harvest some cassava farm which has been abandoned. So people tend not to view education as something because they always have a fallback position. But I must say things are changing very rapidly these days. It's not entirely true. If you are ossified, let's say about a decade ago, you have this impression. But I noticed that schools in Bodi and others, if you compare the BEC results, you see that they will compare to anywhere in this country. So we are coming up. So everybody should watch out. Western region, this is our golden era. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Congratulations. I have two simple questions. Yet, I know it's very simple. I want to find out your plans for the people of Western region. What should they expect from you?
First, from my background, I know rural advocacy will be one. So I will do lots of advocacy. It might interest you that those who talk about women advocacy, and I'm answering this question is not because you are, a woman, but because I believe in it solemnly. Because remember my background in maternal and child, that's my specialty. And I've seen how women have suffered. It might interest you to know that Ghana is very unique. Women own businesses more than any country in the world. Women ownership. But they are in the very small scale sector. We have to get them up. I've told you, the world, really. I'm talking about ownership of businesses. Ghana is number one with regard to women. But unfortunately, they have been neglected. They don't have access to capital, credit. We have to do something about it. We have a unique opportunity to promote the cause of women. Because I believe that when one of the yardsticks that you can judge a country's progress, especially in our parts of the world, is women. So women in the Western region should take note that I will be in their corner. And then, of course, the youth. It's an empirical question. And then also for survival of our country, if you look at me, I have gray hair. So I will be a youth advocate, particularly for the peoples of the Western region. And I've told you already about doing something about road networks and so on and so forth. I believe that when we get all these things going and we get programs that are going and I coordinate them and make sure, I believe that Western region in the next decade will be the primus inter pares of regions in this country.
Thank you very much. I'm so happy you mentioned women, and that leads me to my next question. I want to look at the issue of prostitution. As a result of the mining and maritime activities, the rate of prostitution is so high in the region. I want to find out, do you have plans for these young women who could have done something productive with their lives? Thank you.
Well, exactly. That's why I say that some of them, the ownership are not in my hands. My job is collaboration. My job is to be an enabler. My job is to go to my colleagues, women and gender ministry, and make sure that some of the programs have an issue I can input into it. Of course, they will owe it, like I've said. And if they are so gracious to me and get some of my ideas, I believe it will help the national cause. But when we get that program, I will make sure that it is, rolled out quickly in my region. It's a big issue. Prostitution per se, I do not put moral, I don't submit to any moral thing, but that aspect about diseases, especially, and the human degradation thereby, that is my concern. But of course, that value judgment about prostitution, that's why I leave it to the larger society. So I will do my best.
Thank you.
Will the nominee further to the question that our colleague asked? There's a nagging problem in the Western region about child prostitution and child labor and forced child labor in the Western region. What will you do to fight to eradicate this social menace in the region, particularly child labor in cocoa farms? And you are a good farmer, and I assure us that you are not using children in your farmers' workforce. Thank you, Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to announce that some things get said and then people talk about it anecdotically. I happen to be part of a study and I was actually interviewed by an NGO. You'll be surprised that child labor per se is not a big issue in the cocoa industry in Ghana now. If you have to segregate the cultural dimensions of, our social setup from what people label as child labor. That's why I've told you I don't want to give a lecture. The way I started getting interested in cocoa, if I have not gone through, I will not have been a farmer and be interested in it. But remember, if I may use myself as an example, I was able to pass common entrance and got a scholarship and got one of the most prestigious schools in this country, St. Augustine's College. And that was a Saito school. So that child labor thing, especially, I don't know about other areas, especially in the cocoa industry, I'm happy to report that is largely and grossly exaggerated in this country because it gives our country a bad image. Please don't accept it like that. You can cite me because I'm there. It's not entirely correct. Then, of course, I can concede that in the emerging galamsey industry, that one we have to look at it. But again, we have to do some studies before we go there. As for that, it's illegal. So that is my take on child labor, especially in the cocoa industry.
Chairman, regrettably, with all respect, I cannot take the nominee as my authority on the subject. I know the U.S. Department of State, particularly DOL, the Department of Labor, have even downgraded Ghana, which the Ministry of Interior and the Attorney General is well aware of. And they cite child labor in the agricultural sector, and in particular the cocoa sector. Whether real, imagined, or perception, what will you do to eradicate the menace?
Well, if it's perception, then there's nothing you can do to eradicate it. Then we have to educate those who are labeling us as such. Because I take strong exception. I'm on the floor. And I take strong exception. In fact, this study that was done, I know an NGO who came to her with all these preconceived ideas and wanted to find evidence of child labor. We went to Besibema, no. Chori, no. Fodio Chrome, no. Uredu Chrome, no. Afriyie Nkwanta, which is not related to me, no. So, please, what I'm saying that this government is an image problem and which is intertwined with our cultural values. If you come to my village and about 4 o'clock, you find a child turning the cocoa over. I do not classify it as child labor. Virtually all children, one empirical evidence.
So, normally, sorry, doctor. So, when you use your own son on a farm, it's not child labor, but what labor?
When you use, it depends upon how you use your son for. Your son is going for exercise. He doesn't carry heavy loads. It's weekends. He wants to accompany the father to the farm instead of loitering about in the village and engaging in mischievous things. But when he accompanies me to my farm, I don't put any load on his head. He comes and we crack the cocoa, we ferment it, and he's turning the cocoa over around 4 o'clock, and rain is threatening, and he puts a tarpaulin over it. I don't classify that as child labor.
Even if the child was below the working age, legal
yes,
working
because
age?
In America, children also do domestic chores like washing plates and whatnot.
Doctor, congratulations. My first question flows from the issue of deforestation and mining. You're going to be the chairman of RESEC when approved. I traverse the Western region a lot, and I see the harm that illegal mining is causing to our river bodies, the Prada and Cobra and the rest. I always cry when I get to people so and see the water turned into like a cocoa drink. As the chairman of the RESEC, what are you going to do significantly to reduce the harm we're causing to the water bodies in the Western region?
We have to do a review. But on the other hand, we have to draw a balance between legal mining and illegal mining. We cannot abolish the mining industry. Ghana's economy will sink. But there are illegals out there. The law itself and the policies emanating therefrom will have to be looked at because some of them are unenforceable. The thinking, the antecedent thinking behind deforestation and also illegal mining is not even correct. For example, when I hear that a farmer says somewhere and then Galamsey people come and then mine and devastate his land or his farm, that is not correct. It's the farmer who rather goes to the Galamsey and say, come and do some little prospecting whether this place is rich in gold. And then they sell it. But because cocoa farms do not bring so much income to the farmer, and most of them are old people, they are ready to let these illegals come and do the farms. So, do the mining in their farms. So, we have to go down first and get the primary thinking, right. I'm sure I do not have all the ideas, but by all means, it is an intersectorial collaboration thing. The chiefs are here. They have a huge role to play. They are listening to me because I know that, unfortunately, some of them, it's a very controversial subject. I'll say, invite some of these people there and they pollute the water. Not all of them. But we have to stop this menace one way or the other. I must confess, I do not have all the answers. But as for this gold industry, when it gets into people, it's like they are possessed. they will do everything to get the gold, and they will lay waste the land. As chairman of RESEC, all the laws that come, we have to enforce them. But even sometimes the policemen are put into harm's way. The horse there, and HORDES there, I said that, look, the police and security people will throw at them will not solve this problem. We have to have a national dialogue on this. Even engage the Galamseyers with a view to how we can manage them, how they see the management, because I'm sure that they themselves too know that they are causing harm. For example, I know that there's a law, the water bodies, we can even narrow and say that you can do Galamsey, but as for water bodies, please, I suspect that that small approach can work. Because like you said, when I see them Cobra, and these days they're even on the Bia and Tano rivers. They've gone there. Even where I farm, I have a farm in a place called Sewayo. On the Tano River is, what do you call it? I don't know how that equipment is called.
Honourable Member, first, have you, in your experience, found that any person mining has been granted the license to either prospect or mine in a river body by the Minerals Commission?
I've been out of government for a long time, so I cannot claim to be current now. But it used to be no previously, but now I cannot vow that I have seen.
Then I request you,
yes,
whatever it takes to move people in the river bodies, do it. If it means going on war, because that's a source of livelihood.
Yes.
Or if it means going to war with the soldiers, do it. Let them go on to the farms, but leave the water bodies alone.
But Mr. Chairman, the trouble is not as simple as that, the solution. You see, when even the water body, it depends upon the topology. Even if you do not mine on the river bed, and you even mine upstream, when it rains, willy-nilly, it will drain into the waters.
Chairman, let me congratulate our colleague for the nomination to go to the Western region. Mr. Chairman, in an earlier question to the issue of the child labor, I just want to show you the work that a group did, even though they were all foreigners, and what they said. I've just read the results, but the theme of the work was child labor in Ghana cocoa production, focus upon agricultural tax, economic exposures, and associated injuries and illness. L. Diane Moore, BSBED, and Stephen R. And it's a public health report. Now, this is the results they found. Children and young people aged 9 through 17 are exposed to hazardous occupational exposures, including strenuous work, sharp tools, and pesticides. Lack of training in proper safety practices and inadequate personal protective equipment were commonly noted. Injuries and illnesses included musculoskeletal disorders, strains, lacerations to the head, fractures, eye injuries, rashes, and coughing. Now, I've been taking a lot of lessons from how to manage my farm, knowing you have been a very successful farmer, but you agree that even the adults, if we all admit, you even buy protective clothing for the farmers, and when it's time for them to use, they put them aside. Don't you think that the result that is just published confirms what you and I know, that even as owners, when we get them protective clothing, whether helmet, whether gloves, whether masks, whether the raincoat, they virtually don't use it, and therefore contributed to the findings of this result?
Well, Mr. Chairman, we have to be very careful here. I am not saying that the operational word is empirism. how many, where was the site, when was it, the study conducted, where, how many children were, were captured in the study and so on, so forth. I'm not denying that you will not get a case of child labor or, for that matter, child abuse even in any society. All that, what I'm saying is that kind of stigmatization, the child labor thing has got its own cultural dimensions that they will lump all together. Like you've rightly said, pesticide hazard, and the WHO, I presided over that in the developing world. It's a real menace, but it is a menace which is common to everybody, child, adult, and whatnot. It is not because the child, it is because the child is in that environment that he is. Because if you pollute the water body with a pesticide, the child is going to drink it willy-nilly. So is the father or the mother. So it cannot be that constitutes child labor. So so what I'm saying, as for the strenuous work, I don't know. You have to be with these people and say that we have to define it. Otherwise, what the school athletics will also be strenuous work. Yes, it's time motion thing. Because me, I go to the farm because I want to live long, and I do strenuous. I climb hills and descend hills. So I don't get it. Honestly, if you don't take care, our children, there will not be any children to take over our cocoa farms. We have to sit down with them and then let's go into nitty-gritty and do definitions. Because I know that they hold the market. Virtually no cocoa is consumed here. I suspect that they might even be doing that to hold the prices of cocoa down. Look, me, consumer boycotts and whatnot. Me, I don't. There are a lot of things, bad things are happening there. I don't want to venture into somebody's. As for sharp tools, you have to do an empirical study and say how many children have been harmed thereby. That's why I will buy it. But as a rule, and again, child labor, that concept has contributed to raising our consciousness about things which were frankly bad for children in the time past. I suspect that a decade ago, if you went to the farms in Sevi, Wassa, Brosa, elsewhere, you will find that some of these elements that you are saying could indeed be true. I do not deny it. But these farmers, and I live with them, they have become conscious of these things. And for me, my number one empirical evidence is that how many children are in school in Bodi and its environs? There will be more than 90%. It's like the national average. How are they coping in school? You will find that some of the schools in Bodi, their BEC results are better than some of the schools in Kumasi. For me, that is the ultimate vindication, because these things, there are so many imponderables. So if you do not take care, they will lump everything together and confound the issues. And then you yourself, you will believe these things and you will be put into, you will be put in a state of inaction. I don't buy it.
Thank you, Mr. You get paid?
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, the children, they don't get paid, but I don't want even that to be introduced into our culture, because the fathers take care of them. That is pay.
The reason why I just wanted that, because if you say labor, that means there should be payment. And in our case, when we take our children, even my children who are somewhere at the university, I take them when I'm going on a weekend that they are on vacation. And when we go around to do all those things, nobody gets paid. So I'm just trying to buttress the issue about the labor, because nobody pays any child who accompanies his parent just to also learn how to, even first to know the farm, to help understand what goes through before the beans are this. Anyway, let me just proceed.
Mr. Chairman, precisely, you are reinforcing my views about that. You see, if a Caucasian came here and I took him to my farm to do all those things, those routines that you are saying, in fact, you should be paying me, because I'm impacting skills. So I'm imparting skills to my child. Why should I pay even the child? So
anyway,
this cultural
let's just move on.
Yes, please.
Honorable colleague, I mean, you mentioned, and it's in your CV, you've one time been the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, whichever. I don't know the title exactly when you were there. But do you remember signing the mining lease for Bogosu Mining Company?
Mr. Chairman, my title was Land, Forestry and Mines. Honestly, it will be very difficult for me to recall some of the leases that are signed. Very, very difficult. It could be or it could not be.
I'm just asking this because, you know, there's a lot of demonstration around Bogosu, Prisia, and I just, since you can't remember, because I wanted to know the basis, how we arrive at such that there's that direct confrontation. But since you can't remember, what do you think, with your experience as a typical cocoa farmer, what do you really think we can do as a country to improve the movement of agrochemicals, fertilizer, from the regulator to the farmers?
Well, if I understand you right, means to improve means the farmers getting the inputs at the correct time and the right quantities, right?
So.
Yeah, good. Then we have to use market mechanisms. Putting these things in the hands of public servants will not help us. We should pay the farmer well, educate them which inputs are needed, and then supervise them and look and make them do their own purchasing. The farmers know what is right for them. What I find very irritating is that some people think that we farmers, we do not know what is good for us. And they bring programs, which programs can then be, which programs can the public servants and whatnot can do some things which I don't want to say to this committee, and so to speak, defeat the purpose of the program. In other words, the farmers eventually don't get it, and when they get it, it doesn't get to them well. And then another thing too, with regard to fertilizer, for example, when you look at the evidence, the last time I heard, they said they were sending 1.6 million bags of fertilizer free to everybody, every cocoa farmer in Ghana. But you know that our land is 1.6 million hectares, the productive farms, which means every farm needed about 10 bags. So actually what was coming from the center was even minuscule compared to the demand. That's why I say that we should use market forces. If in the beginning we farmers did not know the benefit of soil fertigation, now we know. So we have to use market forces or pseudo market forces so that if government can fertilize, can subsidize it a little bit, and then leave us to buy it from the open market. I believe that it will be better for us. And the heavy regulation will not help us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.